Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. You can now pre-order Modern Horizons booster boxes for $199.99 when you use the promo code. And while you're there, check out their new exclusive Richard Kane Ferguson playmats. Details can be found in the description below. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to a special edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch, where we're going to check in on the price trends for War of the Spark cards now that the set has been out for about a week. Also, we're going to look at the pricing on some of the most expensive of those alternate art Japanese language planeswalkers. Without any further ado, though, let's get into it. We'll begin with the buy box promo. This is Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, going down $3.89 to $22.23 this week. This is actually a pretty cool commander card, but as more of these are getting out there in the marketplace and they're circulating a little bit, the price point is dropping. I would expect this to settle in closer to around the $20 mark in the coming weeks. Now we'll move on to the top 10 War of the Spark cards that lost value this week. There's actually quite a few cards on here that had a good weekend at the Star City Games Open or the Star City Games Classic events. Those were the big tournaments of the weekend. But some of those cards happen to be rares. A lot of packs are being opened. There's a lot more cards getting into circulation. So in some cases, even strong gameplay isn't pushing the card up. So let's see what's happening here. Number 10, Ugin the Ineffable, goes down 91 cents to $6.90. Perfect example. This card actually saw a lot of play in some control builds this weekend that were very successful. Esper Control, Grixis Control, Dimir Control, but this is a rare and a lot of cards are getting out there in circulation right now. Number 9 is Ashiok Dream Render, down $1.03 to $1.93. First thing I gotta point out, this is an uncommon that had a very high price point going out of the pre-release season into the launch weekend. So that's part of the reason you're seeing the big drop here. The other reason is this card didn't play a big role in those Star City Games events this past weekend. However, on Magic Online, this card has been doing some things. Modern Dimir Mill, they love this card. I'm pretty sure that deck will end up adopting this. Also, Legacy Mono Black Control has been running this. This will find homes, but remember, this isn't uncommon. There's going to be tons of copies out there. Number 8, Vivian's Arkbow, goes down $1.03 to $2.55. Now, this card has a lot of raw power behind it, but unfortunately, Green did not have a very good weekend when it comes to standard play last weekend. So this card is floundering a little bit. I have seen it show up in some modern builds on Magic Online, Selesnya Devoted Company, a couple in the sideboard here or there. We'll have to kind of see where it settles in, but I do think it could lose more value if it doesn't quickly find a home. Number 7 is Bolas' Citadel, down $1.11 to $3.61. This is a tough card to work in standard because it is kind of situational. It's very color demanding. I don't know if it's going to find a home there. I think it's a great commander card, though. You can definitely build around this for sure. Now, when it comes to Vintage, I did see some people trying to use this in Vintage Storm, like in the Vintage Challenge, for example. But even that deck went 3-3, didn't do anything amazing. I do think this one will lose more value, too. Number 6, Gideon Blackblade, goes down $1.37 to $18. Now, this one is a little different. It is a mythic for starters. And secondly, it actually looked good at the Star City Games Open and Star City Games Classic events. We saw this in a number of different builds. Selesnya Tokens, Moros Aggro, Azorius Aggro, Selesnya Angels. So this card is seeing play. I'm a little surprised it went down this much this week, but it did have kind of a high price point going into the launch weekend. Maybe that's part of the reason. I do think it will stabilize quickly, though. Number 5, Dreadhorde Arcanist, goes down $1.40 to $4.99. Another card with a lot of potential. Maybe at some point someone will tap into it. When it comes to the first weekend of competitive play, though, it wasn't doing a whole ton. There was a Naya Feather deck that was in the top 8 of the Star City Games Classic. That deck ran this, but you didn't see it in many other decks that were performing well. Number 4, Teferi Time Raveler, goes down $1.61 to $12.77. This card felt like it was everywhere last weekend at those big events. But being a rare, with a lot of packs being open, this is a very popular set. It still loses value. I do think it will lose more value, too, before it does finally stabilize, maybe closer to the $10 mark for at least a little while. But you could find this in Esper Control, Bat Midrange, Esper Midrange, Bat Nexus. Even modern Azorius Control did well with this card last weekend. Number 3, Nicol Bolas Dragon God, goes down $1.84 to $28. Here's a mythic. It's the big splashy rare of the set. Why is it going down? Did it not do well at the Star City Games events? Actually, it did pretty well. Grixis Control came in first as well as third in the Star City Games Classic, both those decks running 4 copies of this in the main. So what's happening here? Basically, you have a really high price point going into the launch weekend. A price point that any card really couldn't maintain unless it was seeing play in multiple decks in week 1. And because of that, this will go down. It will probably go down a little bit more. This is going to be a card you will see in Standard in those Grixis control decks, maybe at some point a Grixis midrange deck or something like that. But it's not going to be a card that's going to cross-pollinate well into a lot of different decks, and that's going to keep the price a little bit more manageable compared to some of the other cards over the course of the next few weeks. We'll have to see going forward how other formats take to this card, and that could include things like Modern or Commander. Number 2, Ilharg the Razeboar down $2.09 to $10. Now, this is another Mythic going down quite a bit in value, and it didn't see any crazy play at the Star City Games event this weekend, but on Magic Online it is doing some things again, so you want to pay attention to this card in the future. Modern Breach decks are running this, and we'll have to see how that pans out. Also, I have seen like Gruul Warrior decks in Standard, but again, looking at the results from the first week, it's not impossible, but those decks do have an uphill climb. Number 1, Finale of Promise down $2.41 to $6.93. Again, we have a Mythic here that had a pretty high price point going into that first week, so it is losing value. Did it see play? A little bit of play in the Star City Games Modern Classic. This was found in the Is It Phoenix decks and Mono Red Phoenix decks that performed well. Only one copy, though, in the main of each of those decks. It wasn't seen in large numbers, but it's definitely out there. Time for the top 7 War of the Spark cards that gained value this week. We're only looking at 7 cards today because once you get past 7, we're only talking about a penny or two, and those could have been any card, honestly. So just keep in mind, with a new set, especially a popular one, cards are going to have a hard time increasing in value. They have to see a lot of play to get pushed, just because we know there's going to be a lot of cards in circulation moving forward. Number 7, Enter the God Eternals, up 7 cents to $2.38. Now, this card showed up in a lot of decks this past weekend. Variants of Control like Esper Control, Grixis Control, Dimir Control, also Esper Midrange. The card actually looked pretty good, and I think a lot of people were sleeping on it during the pre-release time, so it does tick up a little bit this week. Number 6 is Tamiyo, Collector of Tales, up 23 cents to $3.47. I do think a lot of people were expecting this to be good in Nexus decks, and it was last weekend. Simic Nexus and Bat Nexus both performed well with this. Sultai Midrange used it too, but I do think the value of this card is going to be closely tied to how the Nexus decks do going forward. Number 5, Narset Parter of Veils, goes up 72 cents to $1.71. An uncommon going up 72 cents. What is the deal here? Well, the deal is this card saw, again, a lot of play in these control builds. Esper Control, Grixis Control, Dimir Control, Simic Nexus. This card was in a lot of competitive decks last weekend. Number 4, Liliana Dreadhorde General, goes up 72 cents to $29.27. A lot of parallels between this card and Nicol Bolas. It's a big, splashy mythic rare that everybody's chasing. The price point's about the same. Why is this one going up while the other one is going down? Well, basically because this card saw play in more than one type of deck over the course of the weekend, although the decks that it was seeing play in, for the most part, were control builds. Esper Control, Grixis Control, Dimir Control. Also saw play in Esper Midrange as well, but because it had a bigger presence in week 1, the value does climb up here. Number 3 is God Eternal Kefnet, up 95 cents to $19.46. You have an expensive mythic here actually going up in value. Did it really perform that well last weekend? Yeah, it actually looked pretty good. Bat Nexus decks ran this, Dimir Control decks ran it. This is a card that I think will be picked up maybe in some more decks too as the season goes on. Number 2, the second God Eternal Oketra, goes up $1.86 to $9.99. Now this card is really jumping up because I do feel like it was a little undervalued during the pre-release time period. So now that it has seen some play and it did well last weekend, it is jumping quite a bit. This was in BAT midrange decks. Now it wasn't in a whole lot of different decks, but it did perform well there. Number 1, Chandra Fire Artisan, goes up $2.20 to $5. Here is a rare jumping more than $2. What happened here? Well, much like the previous card, I did feel like it was really undervalued going into this season. Basically, the first time I saw this card, I said I want to play this in mono red aggro. The casting cost is affordable, it lets me keep the pressure on, it lets me see more cards, perfect for those type of builds. And that's what happened last weekend. Mono red aggro came in first place at the Star City Games Open, running 4 copies of this in the main. There was another copy of that deck that came in second, not running any copies. Another version of that deck came in third, running 1 copy out of the sideboard. So Mono Red Aggro had a good first week, which isn't unusual. A lot of times that deck just does well in the beginning because it's kind of the old standby at this point. But aside from that, the version of the deck that took the whole thing really showcased the power of this card. Okay, let's move on to our top 10 highest value Japanese language alternative art planeswalkers. That is a mouthful. Now, I'm not talking about price trends with these. I'm just looking at the top 10 most valuable because we are just starting to get price data rolling in. So if I said last week's price was this much higher or lower, it would be a little bit awkward and misleading because we didn't have good price points last week. So let's just see what's going on with number 10. Teferi Time Raveler at $24.48 currently. Number 9, Gideon Blackblade at $24.99. Number 8, Domri Anarcha Bolas at $25 even. Number 7 is Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord at $27.50. Number 6, Ugin the Ineffable at $29.99. Number 5, Nissa Who Shakes the World, $30.98. Number 4 is Vivian Champion of the Wilds, $32.49. Number 3, Karn the Great Creator at $35.98. This actually looked pretty good in the Star City Games Modern Classic last weekend. You found copies of this in Mono Green Tron and also Mono Red Prism. Both those decks performed very well. Number 2, Nicol Bolas Dragon God at $38. And number 1, Liliana Dreadhorde General at $199.50 right now. Keep in mind though, right now the issue with these cards is circulation. They are hard to get, especially in the States, and that is driving prices up. However, you will randomly find these cards in the next series of prize packs coming to LGSs. When more copies get out there, things will settle down, at least for a while. Alright, with that being said, that is the Market Watch for today. We're going to come back on Saturday and do our full episode of the Market Watch where we look at everything else outside of War of the Spark. But until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a great day.